Hi everyone, today I'm making pine tar soap. Now pine tar soap is not something that everybody likes, but it's definitely something in my family. It's kind of celebrated. It's like the soap that Dad used to use when we were kids. Anyway, I'm using this Stockholm tar from the local horse place, like the pet shop place, Pet Barn I think it was, and it's pure Stockholm tar made in Sweden, genuine Swedish pine tar. So that's the stuff you want if you want to make this. And this is a really cool recipe. I've made this recipe before and given it away to friends and family, and it's very well loved. And I have to say, if you've got blokey blokes in your life, they will probably like this soap. I'm not quite sure why. I think possibly it has something to do with the fact that it's brown and it smells a bit like campfire. Anyway, it's quite funny. They all go for it. So this soap has got olive oil, coconut oil, cocoa butter, castor oil, pine tar and beeswax. So it's got a lot of different things in it. But the cool thing about pine tar soap is pine tar accelerates trace like nothing else. So you don't need a stick blender. This is a great soap to just make in a bowl with a whisk, and that's all you need. Anyway, enough talking. I'll make the soap now. Hope you enjoy. This recipe is pretty easy to make. I just start off with measuring my liquid oils. So I start with 598 grams of olive oil. Then I add 85 grams of coconut oil, which I've just melted in my microwave to make it easier to melt. And make sure you zero your scale in between oils. Next, in goes the castor oil, 47 grams. And I'm adding a bit of cocoa butter to this recipe, which is really nice. This is 95 grams of cocoa butter. This recipe is kind of borrowed from my honey and oat hot process soap recipe. It's very similar to that one. It's a really nice recipe. And I'm using 1% of beeswax, so that's 9.5 grams of beeswax. This is just beeswax that I've had for so long. I'm trying to use up all these ingredients. I tend to buy things in bulk, so they last me a really long time. And finally, the Stockholm tar. This is amazing stuff. It's very strong smelling and it's very sticky. So 114 grams of pine tar you need, and that's about, I think it's 12% of the total recipe of the oils. So just pour that in as best as you can, and then just use a spatula to get that out of the bowl. Otherwise it'll be very hard if you just use a spoon. You could get it out with a spoon, just use whatever you have, but if you've got a spatula, that will work really well. And mix those together. Now, beeswax and cocoa butter, but beeswax in particular, has a really high melting point. So these oils and waxes and butters all need to be melted together. I'm using my microwave. I do microwave them for a couple of minutes and then stir it and then a little bit more. But I know that not everybody likes microwaves, so you don't have to use the microwave if you don't want to. Just use the stovetop. You can see there after the first couple of minutes I take it out and the beeswax still isn't melted yet. So the melting point of beeswax is 62 to 64 degrees Celsius, which is about close to 145 Fahrenheit. So it's pretty high. And there it is, it's all melted. I just gave it another little blast. So it's quite warm now, and we do need it to cool down. You can just touch the bowl and just feel it. If it feels too hot, it probably is too hot. I didn't take the temperatures for it, but you want to wait till it's sort of more like a warm, lukewarm temperature rather than really hot. Next I'll make my lye solution, and I'm getting a bit experimental this one. I'm using all ice. I'm using 237 grams of water, which is a 2-to-1 water to lye ratio, but I'm using all ice. Make sure you've got your safety gear on, so you need gloves, goggles and a face mask. The beauty of using ice, and there's my lye going in, 118 grams. The beauty of using ice is that it doesn't let off any fumes, which is fantastic. And I tried this out in my carrot puree hot process soap recipe, and I used half water, half ice for the water, and that worked so well. I decided to try all ice in this one, which I don't know if I'll do that again. It worked really well. You can see here that the sodium hydroxide really generates a lot of heat in that reaction with the water. So it melts that ice like before your eyes really, really quickly. But it does leave you with a coolish lye solution, not really cold, like it's kind of warmish. But if you want a warmer lye solution, then you'd be better off to use half ice, half water. Anyway, just experiments that I'm playing around with. Next, you get your essential oil ready. I'm using 38 grams and a combination of tea tree and cedar, which I think is really complementary for the tar smell because it's quite strong. And get your mold ready as well. So here my oils are. They've all cooled down a bit. They're probably close to 40 degrees Celsius, maybe 45, somewhere around that mark there. They're around body temperature. You just want them warm. And I pour the lye in. There you go. Just give that a mix. Start that mixing. This soap saponifies very, very quickly. You're going to see how fast this is. Once you mix that lye in, start to stir, it thickens pretty much straight away. You can feel it start to thickening straight away, I should say. So I've got my black whisk. Start to give it a mix. I can feel it thickening up already. So you just give it a bit of a mix. You can use a whisk or a spoon. You don't have to use a whisk. If you've just got a spoon, that's okay. And I can feel it thickening, so I decide to put my essential oils in pretty quickly because they're going to be harder to mix in if the batter is too thick. You can see it is thickening up quite fast. So you really don't need a stick blender for this recipe. Just a bowl and a spoon is all you need. Here's a close-up. You can see it's getting quite thick. Really, it only took about a minute or two, if that. This is slightly edited, so it's slightly faster, but it was pretty quick. You can see I've got a really good trace there, so it's ready to pour. Look at that. It looks like chocolate, doesn't it? Not very tasty. Doesn't smell like chocolate either. The pine tar scent is really smoky and strong and kind of like a campfire. Yeah, it's something that you either love it or you don't, I think. Anyway, that's it. The soap is ready to pour. So you just pour it into your pre-prepared mold. It's getting quite thick by the end of this pour, but it's a really beautiful, glossy, lovely soap. The first test batch I made of this soap, I think I used 10% pine tar in the recipe, and it was beautiful, but I wanted to make it slightly stronger, so I went with 12% in this one. But all the recipe details are in the description box, so you can check those out. That was so easy to make. This is the second time I've made this now, and it's going to be a favourite, I think, from now on. Everybody in my family really loves it, particularly those blokey blokes. I just get a bit of a chopstick swirl on the top just to even out the funny little lumps. And that's it. Can't really tell what it looks like because of the contrast. Oh, there's a better shot. It's really, really shiny and glossy. Freshly poured soap is a beautiful thing. There you go. And here it is the next morning. I didn't show what I did to insulate it, but I kind of show it here as I'm taking it out. I put this one in my cooler overnight. I did insulate it a bit. I put some strips of core flute, but you could use cardboard, over the top and a little towel, and I left it in my insulated box overnight. And this is it early the next morning. So the soap, it's a lot lighter in colour, but it has fully gelled, this soap, which I quite like. I would want this soap to go through a full gel phase because a partial gel really shows up a lot more in a darker coloured soap. So you want to make sure you really get it to fully gel. This would make a really good hot process soap too. So you could do that as well. And I'm just trimming off some of those edgy bits. and ready for the cut. It's a beautiful soap. Look at that. It really looks like chocolate now. But again, it does not smell like chocolate, and it certainly wouldn't taste like chocolate. It's a gorgeous soap though. It's one of my favorites too now. I really like it. You can see there's a little white spot in the soap there. Can you see that? There were a few of those little white spots in this soap. I'm not sure what they were. I'm hoping that they weren't undissolved lye. I don't think they were. There were a few little air pockets as well, but I did test the soap and I tested the spots as well, and they were all fine. So just make sure that everything is mixed really well when you mix your soap. You shouldn't get any spots. And when it's done, after you've cut it, make sure you cure it for a good 6 weeks in a nice cool dry spot. I did test this. It had fully saponified, so it was fine for me to test it, but I do recommend you leaving it for a good 6 weeks to cure. It'll be much better. I just wanted to show you the lather. It's really quite good. Just love it. Nice lather. It turns out to be a nice, firm, pretty long-lasting bar as well, thanks to the cocoa butter and a bit of beeswax in the mix. And it's just lovely. It's got a nice feel on the skin and doesn't feel too drying. It's quite a nice recipe. So there it is. Hope you enjoyed that. I really love making this soap. I love these simple ones that you can just make in a bowl. They're really quite fun. Yeah, please give us some feedback, and I'd love to hear your comments and questions in the comment section below. And thanks for watching, everybody. I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the next video. See ya!